Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Today, we are plunging headfirst into a truly wild story, one that it really defies nearly every conventional expectation of success. We're talking about the incredible legend of Barbara Corcoran.
Yeah, it's quite something.
I mean, imagine this for a moment. A young woman, undiagnosed with dyslexia, who by the tender age of 23 had already churned through, a staggering 22 different, often low-paying jobs?
22. It's hard to even picture.
Right. And then she manages to borrow a mere $1,000 from an ex-boyfriend. I mean, a sum that barely covers a month's rent in most major cities today. And from that tiny seed, she cultivates and ultimately builds a real estate empire that sells for an astonishing $66 million.
It sounds almost like fiction when you put it like that.
It really does. But hold on, because this isn't just your standard business success story. Not at all. It's raw, incredibly compelling. It's a revenge story, really.
Definitely has elements of that.
It's a powerful comeback narrative that showcases just sheer grit. And fundamentally, it's a masterclass in daring, unconventional strategy, a playbook written by someone who had, pretty much every single odd stacked firmly against her.
Yeah.
So our mission for this deep dive is to unpack what we're calling the untamed, unconventional, unapologetically bold playbook of Barbara Corcoran. We're going to dissect how someone achieves such monumental success, building a dynasty in a market as notoriously cutthroat and, unforgiving as New York City real estate.
Which is saying something.
Oh, yeah. All without the typical advantages. She started with no powerful connections, no fancy credentials, no family fortune to lean on. How did she not just survive, but absolutely defy all expectations and thrive?
And this journey, as our sources really powerfully reveal, it's so much more than simply a tale of celebrity status or, impressive financial metrics. It's about a profound personal transformation. It's a story where the ashes of a broken heart and a meager $1,000 loan became the unlikely yet incredibly fertile ground for immense, undeniable success. So we're going to go far beyond the simple numbers and really dig deep into her truly unique mindset. The often audacious, unconventional strategies she employed, and the deeply gut-driven decision-making process that absolutely set her apart from, pretty much every one of her competitors.
Right.
These are insights that truly transcend the balance sheet, offering lessons that are far more about human psychology and resilience than about, say, financial formulas.
Absolutely. When you look at her path, it almost feels like a blueprint for how to turn disadvantages into your greatest strengths. Okay, let's unpack this incredible journey and truly see what we can learn from her remarkably audacious approach. The unexpected foundation. Money as a tool, not a goal. Financial mindset. So to really understand Barbara, we have to start at the very beginning, right? At the root of her earliest formative relationship with money.
Yeah, that's key.
For many people, wealth accumulation, the simple act of piling up cash or assets, that's the ultimate goal, the pinnacle of achievement. But for Barbara, our sources are very clear. It was never, ever about simply accumulating cash for its own sake.
Not the primary driver.
Exactly. From her perspective, money was always, from day one, a tool, a means to an end, a way to prove something far deeper within herself. It was almost like a language for her.
It's an essential distinction, truly.
I think.
And to fully grasp this, we really need to trace her origins. Barbara Corcoran was born in Edgewater, New Jersey, back in 1949. She was the second of 10 children in a working-class Irish Catholic family.
10 kids, wow.
Yeah. Her upbringing was, by any measure, far from privileged. Our sources paint a pretty vivid picture of a childhood marked by struggle. Her father, we're told, grappled with alcohol and found it difficult to hold down stable jobs. Her mother, though, in stark contrast, was apparently the epitome of resourcefulness and ingenuity. I mean, somehow managing to raise 10 children on what could only be described as a shoestring budget.
Incredible resilience there, too.
Totally. And in the Corcoran household, the conversations weren't about, investment portfolios or accumulating wealth or building a fortune. No, they were fundamentally about survival, just getting by.
Right.
And Barbara herself faced her own significant, deeply personal hurdles from a very young age, which profoundly shaped her financial outlook later on.
And this is where a crucial and I think often overlooked piece of her personal puzzle comes into play. Undiagnosed dyslexia.
Right, which wasn't really understood back then.
Exactly. In a public school system that wasn't equipped to identify or support those kinds of learning differences, this led to her being unfairly labeled the dumb kid in school.
Oof, that's tough.
Can you imagine the profound, almost crushing weight of carrying that kind of stigma through your formative years, especially in a large family where maybe academic achievement might have been one of the few ways to get individual recognition?
Yeah, it would definitely shape you.
This early experience profoundly shaped her self-perception, instilled a deep sense of inadequacy, and, in turn, fueled an almost insatiable ambition to prove her worth, not just to others, but definitely to herself.
Mm. You see that drive.
So it's no surprise then that her early career was marked by struggle and a kind of restless search for purpose. By the time she was just 23, she had already cycled through a staggering 22 different jobs, waitressing, reception work, various kinds of customer service roles.
Wow.
As she herself would describe it, none of them truly stuck. It was a period of intense searching, frustration, and crucially, learning what didn't fit.
It truly was a period of profound uncertainty, yet one that, when you look back, forged an incredible, almost unbreakable resilience in her.
Right.
It was during this rather transient time, while she was working as a waitress, that she met Ray Simone. He became her boyfriend and, quite significantly, her unlikely benefactor.
Okay.
In 1973, he offered her what she describes as a profound lifeline, a $1,000 loan to start a small real estate business in New York City.
$1,000. That's it.
That's it. Now, to be clear, that $1,000 wasn't just capital, a simple financial injection anyone could maybe get from a bank. Our sources emphasize it was far more than that. It was, as one put it, identity.
Identity?
Interesting.
Yeah. It represented the very first time she had been trusted not merely to survive, like she'd been taught by her family, but to actually build something, to create, to assert herself in the professional world. So she co-founded Corcoran Simone, and initially they worked from a shared desk, often cold calling clients. But beneath that sort of nascent operation, Barbara felt this was her profound chance to fundamentally rewrite the narrative that had been imposed upon her, the dumb kid narrative.
And then the story takes a truly cruel, almost cinematic turn. One that would become, well, legendary in her origin story.
Yeah, this part is rough.
Just a few years into their business venture, Ray Simone not only left Barbara for their receptionist, but as if that betrayal wasn't enough, he added salt to the wound. He cruelly informed her that she would never, ever succeed without him.
Wow, that's brutal. The devastation, the public humiliation, the personal pain she must have felt are almost unimaginable. Most people, faced with that kind of emotional weight, that level of professional and personal invalidation, would have crumbled. They might have retreated, given up, or just, sought a safe, secure job.
For sure. Most would.
But Barbara Corcoran, as we've learned, is not most people.
No, definitely not. What's truly fascinating here is how she didn't just not fold. She actively took that moment of profound betrayal and, with an almost alchemical process, turned it directly into the most potent fuel imaginable.
Right, like rocket fuel.
Exactly. It became an incendiary force that propelled her forward with an almost frightening intensity. Rather than giving up or even seeking a new, less emotionally charged path, she made the decisive choice to split the company.
Okay.
And in an act of profound confidence, she managed to convince 7 of their 14 agents to leave with her.
Half the team.
Half the team. In 1978, with those 7 agents, she launched her own firm, the Corcoran Group. This wasn't merely a shrewd business decision. It was a deeply personal, deeply defiant act of fierce determination and absolute self-reclamation.
And this is where her motivation truly profoundly shifted, didn't it?
Absolutely.
It wasn't about the money itself anymore, at least not in the conventional sense of accumulation. The driving force was an almost primal, visceral need to prove him wrong. To show not just Ray, but herself, her family, the entire world, that she could succeed and thrive independently. That pivotal moment of betrayal didn't just break her heart, it fundamentally redefined her mission, gave her a singular burning purpose. Money, from that point on, acquired a new, deeper, almost sacred purpose. It became about revenge, about freedom, and ultimately about the power to control her own narrative.
And she's been remarkably direct, almost brutally honest about this. She famously articulated it. I was never motivated by money. I was motivated by proving I was worth something.
There it is.
This mindset, this profound underlying motivation, informed pretty much every subsequent financial decision she made, every dollar she earned. She didn't spend money recklessly, chasing fleeting pleasures or status symbols, as many newfound entrepreneurs might.
Right, the easy trap to fall into.
Totally. Instead, she invested it ruthlessly. She didn't save it simply to feel secure or hoard it for a rainy day, which honestly would have been a very natural impulse for someone who came from a family focused on survival.
Yeah, makes sense.
Instead, she reinvested to grow louder, faster, and bolder. Her focus was always on expansion, on amplifying her presence, on making her company, and by extension herself, an undeniable force, rather than on building a quiet, comfortable nest egg.
So the profound takeaway here for you, the listener, is this. For Barbara, money wasn't a commodity to hoard or a score to settle in a purely financial sense. It literally became her narrative.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
It was a powerful, tangible way to reclaim the voice and the worth she'd been denied throughout her early life, in school, in business, and in that devastating relationship. It almost feels like a form of self-actualization through business.
Mm-hmm.
This core belief that money should serve your story, your purpose, your larger mission rather than being an end in itself became her ultimate and truly unconventional financial weapon. It allowed her to see every dollar not as a measure of personal wealth, but as a brick in the foundation of her personal declaration of independence, a statement of defiance to anyone who ever underestimated her.
Oh.
Building a brand on rejection, unconventional career strategy, and wealth building. Okay, let's transition now, not just to how she built the Corcoran Group from scratch in 1978, but just the sheer audacity of it all. Remember the context. She was starting over with a broken heart, a small team of 7 agents.
Right. In New York City.
Entering a New York real estate market that, at the time, was notoriously male-dominated, old school, and run by powerful established figures. She had no MBA, no formal business plan to speak of, and absolutely no outside funding.
None of the usual advantages.
Nope. What she did have, however, was something far rarer and arguably more potent than any of those conventional advantages. A burning, unyielding, almost visceral need to prove everyone wrong. Especially the man who had once bankrolled her initial dream and then so cruelly dismissed her potential. I mean, how do you even begin to approach that?
It's fascinating, isn't it? Most people in that kind of precarious position would have played it incredibly safe. Trying desperately to mimic the established players or sticking rigidly to conventional business models, hoping to just blend in and slowly gain traction.
Yeah, the path of least resistance.
But Barbara, with characteristic brilliance, went in the complete opposite direction. She didn't just launch a business. She began to build an empire by systematically breaking the unspoken rules of the industry, almost by instinct.
Okay.
Her first true masterstroke, the move that genuinely put her on the map and made people sit up and take notice, was the Corcoran Report, which she debuted in 1980.
The Corcoran Report.
Now, this wasn't some elaborate, expensive, glossy publication requiring a team of analysts. No, it was a remarkably simple, single-page document that presented a concise analysis of Manhattan apartment sales.
Just one page.
Just one page. There were no fancy graphs, no access to secret insider data that others didn't have. It was just raw, curated information, packaged and delivered with an almost audacious confidence. She printed it, mailed it out to journalists, boldly pretending it was the definitive market analysis of the city.
Wow. So she just faked it till she made it, essentially.
Pretty much, a pure act of manufacturing authority.
Here's where it gets really interesting and frankly a bit audacious. The media, somewhat astonishingly,
They bought it.
The New York Times, one of the most prestigious and influential publications in the world, actually quoted her. And suddenly, almost overnight, Barbara Corcoran wasn't just another broker. She was an expert.
Instant credibility.
She later famously declared, with a knowing wink, perception creates reality. And that, truly, became her superpower. She didn't wait around for decades to earn credentials or for someone else to validate her expertise or for the industry to recognize her. She manufactured credibility with sheer ingenuity, audacity, and a remarkable knack for self-promotion. It was a brilliant, forward-thinking move long before personal branding was even a concept, before anyone really understood the power of media attention.
She also possessed this profound, intuitive understanding of human psychology that most traditional brokers who were just fixated on numbers and square footage completely missed.
Yeah, how so?
Well, while her competitors were laser-focused on selling amenities, counting bedrooms, listing precise square footage, Barbara understood something far more fundamental. People don't buy properties, they buy stories.
Ah, okay. The narrative again.
Exactly. This was her core differentiator. She wasn't selling real estate as a commodity. She was selling emotion, aspiration, identity. She recognized that a home isn't just a physical space, it's where dreams are built, where lives unfold, where futures are imagined. She didn't just sell real estate, she made real estate human, infusing every transaction, every listing, every open house with narrative and feeling.
And she didn't just understand this concept in theory right. She brought these ideas to life with incredibly specific, often outrageous examples that became legendary in the industry.
Oh yeah, the stories are great.
Imagine this for a moment. Instead of a typical, sterile, quiet open house, Barbara once staged one with a live piano player softly playing classical music in the corner and champagne on ice,
Classy.
turning what should have been a transactional property viewing into a sophisticated, almost glamorous social event. People weren't just looking at a property, they were experiencing a lifestyle and aspiration. They were subtly being sold a dream.
Making it an event.
Totally. And in another truly legendary move, designed purely to grab headlines and spark conversation, she famously placed literal cows on the roof of a luxury building she was trying to sell.
Cows.
Serious literal cows. It was completely absurd, undeniably memorable, and it worked like a charm. Reporters flocked to the scene, eager for the quirky story. Buyers followed, drawn by the spectacle and the buzz, and ultimately the apartment sold. It was pure theater, pure genius.
These actions, as wild as they might seem, they weren't just random acts of showmanship or impulsive stunts. No, they were calculated strategies designed to build not just a business that closed deals, but a scalable brand.
Right. It's about the brand.
Her name, Barbara Corcoran, became not just a brokerage, but a recognizable, trusted, and often talked about entity, synonymous with upper-tier Manhattan properties. She transformed herself from an individual broker into a recognizable force, making her brand and her name the very engine of her success. This intentional focus on brand over mere transactions allowed her to grow far beyond what a typical, more anonymous brokerage could ever hope to achieve.
And the scale of that success by the late 1990s was just staggering. The Corcoran Group had grown to over 850 agents, closing billions of dollars in deals annually.
Billions.
Think about that trajectory. From a $1,000 loan, a shared desk, and a broken heart, to a multi-billion-dollar operation in just a couple of decades. It's truly a testament to her vision.
This explosive growth culminated in 2001 when she made the pivotal decision to sell the company to NRT, which, for those unfamiliar, is one of the largest real estate conglomerates in the U.S., now part of Anywhere Real Estate.
Okay, the big players.
Right. The sale was for a remarkable $66 million. What's truly fascinating and deeply characteristic of Barbara is that the price wasn't derived from some complex financial modeling or extensive EBITDA reports or typical market comparable analyses.
No spreadsheets involved.
Apparently not. Our source tells us it was simply her lucky number.
66 million, her lucky number.
Yet, that's how Barbara negotiated, it states, with gut and nerve. This perfectly encapsulates her unconventional approach, where intuition often trumped traditional, logical business metrics. It was a deeply personal valuation.
What's remarkable isn't just the size of the sale, which is impressive enough, but how she got there. It's crucial for you, the listener, to understand that she didn't directly chase the money itself as a primary objective.
No, that was secondary.
Her relentless focus was always on positioning, on cultivating perception, and on acquiring power. The wealth, the $66 million, was a direct consequence, a powerful byproduct that ultimately followed her relentless, almost obsessive pursuit of these deeper objectives. She didn't just build a business, she built an identity so loud, so distinctive, so unapologetically hers that it literally could not be ignored. She turned every rejection, every doubt, every perceived weakness into pure, unadulterated momentum, transforming herself into the undeniable, unforgettable force in the most brutal real estate market in America. She literally built a brand on her own rejections. 3, the art of boldness. Her unique habits and behaviors.
Okay, so let's dig into the habits now.
Yeah, let's shift our focus from the broad strokes of strategy to the very practical, almost ingrained habits that truly fueled Barbara Corcoran's meteoric rise. We're not talking about meticulously organized spreadsheets or complex analytical algorithms here, the kind of things they often teach in business schools.
And this is different.
Her success was built on something far more visceral, far more instinctive. Pure boldness, incredible speed, and a deeply honed intuition. In an industry that often celebrates conformity and a certain conservative professionalism.
Right, playing it safe.
Barbara stood out precisely by being unmistakably, loudly herself unfiltered. And, crucially, utterly unafraid to look ridiculous if it meant getting the result she needed.
Her daily rhythm, her fundamental approach to business. It was less about seeking perfection and much more about cultivating raw momentum. Barbara was almost obsessively focused on action.
Just doing stuff.
Yeah, she held this profound, almost primal belief that if she could simply stay one step ahead, if she could always be in motion, always doing something, then she didn't necessarily need to be the smartest person in the room or the most credentialed. She just had to move faster than everyone else, seize opportunities before anyone else even saw them.
Get there first.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This philosophy is perfectly captured in her own words, words that should resonate with anyone grappling with indecision. I had nothing to lose, so I said yes to everything and figured it out after.
Figure it out later. I love that.
That mentality wasn't just a casual remark or a catchy quote. It became the driving pulse of her entire operation. While other agents might wait patiently for clients to come to them, Barbara was actively hunting for press opportunities, forging connections. While her competitors meticulously followed every industry protocol, she was breaking them. Sometimes with a calculated recklessness that defied logic but yielded immense results. And that ultimately is what made her such a formidable and unpredictable force.
This brings us to habit, #1, manufacturer urgency. Barbara absolutely refused to let external market conditions dictate the pace or tempo of her business. Instead, she actively created her own market conditions.
Took control.
There's a legendary story that illustrates this perfectly, a masterclass in market manipulation, but in a, positive deal-closing way. During a severe market downturn, when most developers were panicking, properties were stagnant, sales had ground to a halt,
Tough times.
she took a bold, almost unheard-of step. She advised a client with 88 identical condos to price them all at the exact same, seemingly low, fixed price.
88 at the same price. Weird.
Totally weird. This wasn't a mistake. It was a deliberate psychological strategy. She knew, intuitively, that this uniformity in specific, slightly aggressive pricing, combined with the sheer volume, would trigger an almost irrational feeding frenzy among buyers.
The psychology.
The result, a staggering $1 million commission earned in a single day.
Wow. In a downturn.
In a downturn. Her genius insight here was profound, and it's a lesson for any entrepreneur. People don't want to buy in a crisis, but they hate missing a deal even more. She didn't just sell properties, she sold the primal fear of missing out, transforming a seemingly insurmountable crisis into a literal goldmine.
And that leads directly into habit #2. Turn insecurity into energy. It's truly fascinating because despite her outwardly confident, almost brash demeanor, the Barbara Corcoran we see on television.
Yeah, the Shark Tank persona.
Right. Our sources reveal that she openly wrestled with deep-rooted feelings of inadequacy throughout her life. These feelings were constantly fueled by her childhood experiences with undiagnosed dyslexia, academic struggles that led to her being labeled dumb, and the constant comparisons she faced growing up in a large family.
So that insecurity was always there.
Always there. But here's the crucial point. Instead of letting these insecurities paralyze her or force her into hiding, as they would many others, she uniquely channeled them into an unstoppable fuel.
Wow.
She once powerfully stated, with an almost defiant pride, "I was always the loser, and the best thing that ever happened to me was being underestimated."
Using it as motivation.
Exactly. Every snub, every dismissive comment, every doubt cast upon her, she treated as a personal dare, a profound challenge to overcome. A prime example of this is when she was initially rejected from Shark Tank's first casting call.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Most people would have simply accepted the rejection and moved on, right? But Barbara didn't. She famously wrote a scathing yet persuasive letter to the producers, articulating precisely why they had made a mistake. And that audacious, almost confrontational move secured her a seat on the show.
No way. She wrote them a letter.
Yep. Turned a rejection into a red carpet.
Which brings us beautifully to habit #3, play bigger than the room. Barbara made decisions with an almost dramatic flair, not just because she was impulsive, but because she had grasped a fundamental truth that most people miss in business, especially in competitive markets.
What's that?
It's not enough to just be good at what you do. You absolutely have to be remembered. In a crowded marketplace, blending in, being just another face is often a death sentence. She understood that spectacle could be a powerful business tool.
This is perfectly illustrated by another one of her memorable stunts, which shows just how far she was willing to push boundaries for attention. She once fabricated an entirely fictional report, a completely made-up document, which she titled the Madonna Apartment Index.
The Madonna Apartment Index.
Seriously. She then boldly sent it to the press, complete with fabricated data, claiming that properties owned by celebrities experienced significant price surges, implying a new market trend.
That's completely made up.
Entirely fiction, start to finish. But it captivated the media and, crucially, made headlines. This wasn't about data integrity in an academic sense. It was about creating a massive splash, generating buzz, and getting her name and her company talked about in every major newspaper.
Wow.
Barbara didn't wait for permission or validation. She simply weaponized her creativity, embracing risk and leveraging her unique personality to amplify her presence rather than suppress it. She understood that sometimes a memorable lie can open more doors than a quiet truth.
And perhaps her most radical habit of all, one that truly sets her apart from almost anyone else in business. She actively celebrated failure.
Celebrated failure. How does that work?
Yes, you heard that right. In her office, she had a literal wall where she listed every single deal that didn't close.
A failure wall.
A failure wall. Instead of sweeping failures under the rug, pretending they didn't happen, or burying them in endless postmortems, she used them as highly visible teaching moments, as badges of honor for daring to try something significant. She would tell her team, very directly, celebrate what didn't work. It means you tried something big.
Huh. That reframes it completely.
Totally. It reframed failure not as an endpoint, but as a crucial, necessary step in the process of attempting something ambitious, a signal that you were pushing the boundaries of what was possible.
So if we pull all these threads together and summarize her success, it fundamentally came from deliberately doing the opposite of what was expected in her industry.
Right. Zigging when others zagged.
Exactly. She was fast when others were slow, loud when others were quiet. Deeply human and relatable in a world that often valued a detached, almost robotic professionalism, and unapologetically imperfect in an arena that prized polished perfection. Her habits weren't about fitting in. They were about standing out so vividly, so authentically, so memorably, that she simply became impossible to ignore. It was a strategy of intentional differentiation. 4. Gut, risk, and fear as fuel. Life, philosophy, and decision-making.
Okay, so if there's one enduring thread running through Barbara Corcoran's entire life and career, it's got to be this. Her radical approach to decision-making.
Yeah, definitely unconventional.
She fundamentally doesn't make decisions by committee, by consensus, or by endless data analysis. She makes them by instinct, by listening to something far deeper, far more primal than conventional logic or spreadsheets. She often claims she could smell a good deal before seeing the numbers.
It sounds crazy, but
A testament to her profound, almost uncanny reliance on intuition. How does she cultivate that, or was it just always there?
well, she's been very vocal about this, and it's a core tenet of her philosophy. She famously stated, "I don't believe in overthinking. You'll talk yourself out of everything good in life."
That hits home.
Her entire life's philosophy wasn't built on a foundation of certainty or meticulous, risk-averse planning. It was built squarely on sheer courage. Every significant decision she made, especially the truly monumental ones that defined her career, was inherently laced with considerable risk.
Big risks.
Huge risks. Yet Barbara didn't fear risk in the traditional sense. In fact, she feared something else far more deeply: stagnation.
Standing still.
Exactly. The idea of standing still, of not progressing, of becoming complacent, was her greatest adversary, a personal anathema. This fear of being stuck often drove her into action, sometimes quite dramatically.
And to truly understand this, to grasp the genesis of this courage, we have to revisit perhaps the most pivotal moment in her career and indeed her life. That devastating breakup with her then boyfriend and business co-founder, Ray Simone.
Back to Ray, yeah.
When he told her she'd never succeed on her own, that cruel public dismissal didn't just echo in her mind. It became a defining compass, an internal North Star for her entire future. She famously recalled thinking in that raw moment of devastation, "I knew I had two choices. Cry forever or build something so big he'd choke on regret."
Wow. Talk about motivation.
Right. This wasn't just about revenge, though that was certainly a powerful initial catalyst that sparked her defiant spirit. It became the unwavering, guiding direction for every major decision she made from that point forward. Each move became a deliberate, emphatic statement of her independence, her self-worth, and her refusal to be defined by someone else's judgment. She walked away from the perceived comfort and shared power of their existing venture, a significant risk in itself, and chose to build the Corcoran Group entirely in her own image. Agile, daring, and deeply authentically personal.
This deeply ingrained trust in her own judgment and intuition is perhaps best exemplified by the sale of her company in 2001. When NRT, the interested buyer, a large and established corporation, asked her what price she wanted for the Corcoran Group.
Yeah, the $66 million moment.
Exactly.
Right.
Barbara didn't consult a valuation firm. She didn't engage in protracted back-and-forth negotiations, nor did she shop the offer around to create a bidding war, which would have been standard practice for a sale of that magnitude.
Nope. She just named her price.
Her response was simple, direct, and utterly audacious. $66 million, that's my lucky number, take it or leave it. And incredibly, they took it.
Just like that.
Just like that. Was it logical by traditional business standards, by financial metrics, by the book? No, absolutely not. But it worked. And it worked precisely because, by that point, Barbara had cultivated an unshakable, almost spiritual faith in the only compass that had truly never failed her, herself.
Trusting her gut.
Her decision-making style, while appearing chaotic or impulsive to an outsider, was in fact deeply intuitive, sharpened by years of experience and an unwavering willingness to act decisively on gut feelings. She understood that waiting for absolute certainty often meant missing the fleeting, critical moment of opportunity. Her true edge wasn't superior knowledge or exhaustive analysis. It was speed, clarity, and an instinct honed in the trenches of real estate.
This raises an important question for you, the listener, and something that truly highlights her unique psychology. What's truly fascinating is the underlying vulnerability beneath all that apparent boldness and external confidence.
Right, the insecurity we talked about.
Yeah. Our sources reveal that Barbara lived with a constant nagging undercurrent of fear. The fear that one day she'd be found out, that her phenomenal success was somehow just a fluke, that she wasn't truly deserving of it.
The imposter syndrome.
Totally. Yet, this fear didn't paralyze her, as it might many of us, leading to self-sabotage or inaction. Instead, it incredibly, paradoxically, propelled her forward. She ran faster than her doubts. She made louder, more decisive moves than her insecurities would have dictated. It was as if she used that fear as a powerful, relentless internal engine, a constant reminder to push harder, go further.
And this isn't just speculation or conjecture. She has privately admitted, even after achieving all her immense success, that she still felt like the dumb girl in class.
Wow. Even after all that.
Even after all that. But here's the critical distinction, the profound lesson in her approach. She didn't try to run from that version of herself or suppress it or pretend it didn't exist. Instead, she consciously kept that scared little girl close, almost as a constant companion and motivator.
Interesting.
Because as she recognized, that same overlooked and underestimated girl from her childhood was the very one who ultimately taught her to decide like a warrior. It was the wellspring of her audacity, her refusal to conform, her raw determination. It was the genesis of her unique courage.
So, to summarize Barbara Corcoran's decision-making philosophy, it's elegantly simple, yet profoundly challenging, almost counterintuitive for many of us who are taught to overanalyze. Move fast. Trust your gut, even when it seems illogical. Risk everything, within reason.
Right. Calculated risks, maybe?
Well, maybe sometimes not so calculated. And when fear inevitably shows up, and it will show up, don't push it away. Invite it in. Acknowledge its presence. Then, despite its presence, keep moving anyway. It's a powerful lesson in converting internal obstacles into external momentum, in using what might hinder others as your personal propellant. V, attention as leverage. Power thinking and social influence.
So let's talk about attention.
Yes, let's delve now into one of Barbara Corcoran's most astute and enduring strategies, how she systematically created power for herself by mastering attention. In any industry, in any market, attention is not just valuable, it is the ultimate currency. And Barbara knew this implicitly long before the age of social media influencers.
She got it early.
She didn't wait for others to crown her. She ensured she was the loudest voice, the most talked about figure in an undeniably crowded and brutally competitive New York real estate market.
Absolutely. From the very outset, Barbara grasped something fundamental that most real estate agents completely missed, stuck as they were in traditional sales methods. Success wasn't just about diligently closing individual deals. It was about being seen and heard, about dominating the conversation.
That visibility is key.
Totally. She didn't merely aim to sell apartments. She strategically aimed to sell ideas, to generate headlines, and to project a distinctive, memorable personality. Her goal was to make her brand, the one people instinctively remembered, the one they referenced. One of her earliest and most brilliant power plays was transforming her own name, Barbara Corcoran, into a media magnet with the Corcoran Report. What began as a humble, single-page printout, she promoted with the unwavering conviction of a seasoned Wall Street analyst.
The audacity.
And it worked. Soon, the New York Times, then the ultimate arbiter of credibility, started quoting her regularly. Reporters began calling her for insights on market trends. Television appearances naturally followed as her profile rose. She didn't sit back and wait to be chosen or anointed by the establishment. She proactively positioned herself as undeniable, forcing the media to take notice.
Her strategic thinking was consistently 2 steps ahead of the curve, almost prescient. Consider this clever, almost aggressive, yet incredibly forward-thinking move that highlights her understanding of future leverage. Barbara once quietly registered the website domains of her top competitors, securing them before they did.
Whoa, really? Like cyber squatting?
Kind of. Think about that. Most people weren't even thinking about website domains in the early days of the internet, but she was. Now, was that aggressive? Undeniably. It was a bold land grab in the nascent digital frontier. But was it smart? Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely strategic.
She intuitively understood that information was power, and controlling access to that information, or even the digital gatekeepers to her rivals, meant a significant advantage. It was a subtle yet profound assertion of her dominance in the digital space before most of her peers even understood its burgeoning importance. It wasn't necessarily about using the domains, it was about preventing others from using them easily and signaling her intent to lead.
If we truly connect this to the bigger picture, her most brilliant and lasting move was, without a doubt, personal branding, before the term even existed as we know it today.
Totally. OG personal brander.
Right. She didn't hide her story, especially the parts that might typically be seen as weaknesses or embarrassments.
Yeah.
Instead, she actively amplified them, turning them into badges of authenticity. Dyslexic. She talked about it openly, framing it as a source of her unique perspective.
Yeah.
Fired from 20 different jobs, she integrated that into her public pitch, turning it into a narrative of tireless effort and finding her true calling. Dumped by her business partner and told she'd fail. That became her foundational origin story, the burning fuel for her entire empire.
Turning negatives into positives.
Exactly. Everything the world might have seen as a weakness, a liability, or something to conceal, Barbara ingeniously turned into a microphone, transforming potential liabilities into powerful assets for connection, relatability, and a unique narrative that resonated with people. She understood that authenticity sells.
And she even articulated the strategy directly with profound simplicity, saying, "The best thing I ever did was talk about what I was most embarrassed about. People trust real."
That's powerful.
This authenticity wasn't just endearing or charming, though it certainly is both. It was profoundly strategic. It built incredible, almost fierce loyalty with her audience, her clients, and eventually her fans. It made her deeply relatable. And in the media landscape, being relatable is pure gold. It makes you repeatable.
Right, easy to feature.
That's precisely why she didn't just appear on Shark Tank. She effectively became the show's very soul, its emotional anchor, its distinctive voice. On television, she masterfully projected a unique blend of warmth tempered with an iron edge, a no-nonsense honesty.
Yeah, she has that balance.
She mentored nascent entrepreneurs with genuine care. She competed fiercely with her fellow sharks for deals. She laughed infectiously. And crucially, she closed deals with unwavering conviction. Viewers weren't just passively watching her, they actively believed her. And that powerful belief, that trust, translated directly into real, tangible influence and power that extended far beyond the real estate market.
Beyond her iconic television role, Barbara meticulously built a broader media empire of her own, a testament to her understanding of sustained attention. She launched popular podcasts, authored best-selling books sharing her entrepreneurial wisdom, and became a highly sought-after public speaker, commanding high fees for her candid insights.
The whole package.
It wasn't a disparate collection of endeavors. It was a carefully constructed flywheel where each platform seamlessly fed into and amplified the next, reinforcing her brand and expanding her reach. Her pervasive visibility wasn't accidental. It was a deliberate, synergistic strategy designed to maintain and endlessly expand her influence.
And yet, beneath all that phenomenal visibility, all that outward confidence, there was a quiet, powerful truth. Barbara Corcoran was still, at her core, driven by a deep-seated fear of being invisible, of being relegated to just another dumb kid once more, lost in the crowd.
Still chasing away those old ghosts.
Exactly. But this fear, rather than weakening her or making her shrink from the spotlight, paradoxically focused her. Every single time she stepped onto a stage, whether it was a television set, a packed auditorium, or simply a live interview, she wasn't just teaching business or sharing anecdotes. She was unequivocally claiming her space, asserting her undeniable presence, ensuring she could not be overlooked.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, navigating your own professional landscape? For Barbara, Influence was never about ego or vanity, about being famous just for the sake of it. It was rather about insurance.
Insurance. How so?
Her logic was clear, almost painfully practical. If people see you, truly see you, then they cannot ignore you. And if they cannot ignore you, then they ultimately cannot erase you.
Ah, visibility as protection.
Precisely. She ingeniously transformed her mere presence into profound protection. She forged her deeply personal story into an ironclad business strategy, making it compelling and repeatable. And she leveraged her visibility into an unstoppable velocity, propelling her forward at an astonishing pace. That, in its purest, most strategic form, is power thinking in action. 6. Dominating downturns, crisis strategy, and long-term game.
Let's talk about a truly distinctive hallmark of Barbara Corcoran's career, something that sets her apart from almost any other entrepreneur I can think of. Her unique, almost counterintuitive ability to not just survive crises, but to actively capitalize on them.
Yeah, she seems to thrive in chaos.
Right. For her, chaos was never the enemy, never a reason to panic or retreat. Instead, she viewed every downturn, every moment of market uncertainty as a ripe opportunity to leap ahead while others freeze. It's an incredibly aggressive, yet demonstrably highly effective mindset, turning perceived weakness into undeniable strength.
She learned this invaluable, often brutal lesson early on while selling real estate back in the 1970s, a period when New York City itself teetered on the brink of bankruptcy.
Near collapse.
Exactly. This was not a minor recession. It was a profound civic crisis. Listings lingered unsold for months, and agents in droves abandoned the industry, convinced there was no future in it. But Barbara, with characteristic defiance and foresight, leaned in.
While others ran.
While others ran. While others retreated, cutting staff and hoarding cash, she strategically cut prices, dramatically increased her sales volume by making properties more accessible, and systematically dominated market share. She wasn't waiting passively for the market to recover. She was actively reshaping it, seizing control and building her presence while her competitors were paralyzed by fear and uncertainty. She learned to fish in troubled waters.
Her most iconic crisis move, the one that became a legendary case study in real estate circles, came during the infamous 1987 stock market crash, Black Monday.
Oh yeah, that was huge.
Developers were in a full-blown panic. Massive, newly constructed buildings stood half-sold, seemingly unsellable as the economy tanked. Barbara, in a moment of pure, audacious genius, advised one desperate client to do something completely unheard of, something that went against every conventional real estate strategy.
Okay, what was it this time?
She told him to price 88 identical units in a luxury building at the exact same unprecedentedly low price point, making them an irresistible deal.
The 88 units again.
The same move, different crisis. But what happened? Buyers, desperate to secure a bargain and fueled by the fear of missing out on such an unusual limited-time opportunity, literally rushed in. The result was phenomenal. A one-day commission of over $1 million for Barbara.
Unreal. Pulling victory from the jaws of defeat.
In a market that had essentially flatlined, she engineered a miracle, turning scarcity and fear into frantic demand.
Her profound insight during that period perfectly encapsulates her philosophy, and it's a lesson that applies far beyond real estate.
Yeah.
People don't want to buy in a crisis, but they hate missing a deal even more.
FOMO is powerful.
Incredibly powerful. She didn't just maintain her composure during downturns. She actively engineered urgency, leveraging human psychology. She became the master of controlling the narrative, not allowing external circumstances to define her possibilities. While her competitors were desperately trying to fix the broken market, waiting for things to return to normal, Barbara was cleverly reshaping perception, creating demand where none logically existed, and fundamentally altering the landscape to her distinct advantage. She made her own normal.
But her approach wasn't merely about short-term gains during a crisis, brilliant though those were. Barbara always played a profound long game, a testament to her strategic vision.
Right, it wasn't just tactical.
No. From the very beginning of her business, she made a deliberate, disciplined choice to reinvest almost everything she earned directly back into her company, into aggressive branding, into hiring top talent, and crucially, into pervasive media exposure.
Building the foundation.
While other brokers, flush with early commissions, were spending their money on status symbols, on fancy cars or designer clothes to project an image of success, she was literally buying visibility, investing in her public profile and brand equity. She wasn't just chasing a rich lifestyle. She was strategically building leverage, ensuring that her company's foundation was rock solid and its reach ever expanding, building for the future, not just the present.
That forward-thinking, long-term mindset truly paid off in 2001 when Barbara made the decisive choice to exit the business. She could have easily waited longer, attempting to grow even larger, but she trusted her gut instinct and sold the Corcoran Group to NRT for $66 million.
Her lucky number strikes again.
Yep. This wasn't a distressed sale born out of necessity or financial pressure. It was a meticulously timed power move. She executed the deal just before the significant real estate uncertainty that followed the post-9/11 events, effectively exiting at the absolute peak of the market.
Perfect timing, or perfect intuition.
Right. Barbara's long-term brilliance wasn't about predicting every single market turn with perfect accuracy. It was about intuitively knowing when to sprint and, equally important, when to stop. She understood when to press, when to pivot, and most crucially, when to walk away from the table entirely on her own terms, maximizing her return.
And even today, in her role as a Shark Tank investor, Barbara consistently leans on that crisis muscle and her deep understanding of human nature under pressure.
You see it in the founders she backs.
Totally. She explicitly backs founders who demonstrate an ability to thrive when the stakes are highest, when the chips are down. She consistently places her bets on raw grit, on the ability to perform under duress, because as she well knows through personal experience, the best entrepreneurs aren't made during boom times. They're forged in free fall.
Right, pressure makes diamonds.
Their mettle is proven not when everything is going perfectly, but precisely when everything is going wrong. She's looking for those who use adversity as a slingshot.
In essence, Barbara Corcoran built her extraordinary career, not despite adversity, but often because of it. Her success is built on a simple, yet incredibly powerful philosophy regarding crises and tough markets. Tough markets don't kill your dream. They reveal if you're built for it. And, unequivocally, her entire trajectory proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that she was indeed built for it, designed for disruption. Outro.
So as we bring this deep dive to a close, let's reiterate the core transformative lesson from Barbara Corcoran's remarkable journey. Her story is about so much more than merely transforming $1,000 into a $66 million empire.
Yeah, the money's almost beside the point sometimes.
It is. That's the impressive headline, the inspiring number, of course. But the real, profound transformation happened long before the money ever materialized. It occurred the very moment she consciously decided she didn't need anyone's permission to be powerful, to be successful, to define her own worth.
Her empire wasn't built on neatly organized spreadsheets or meticulously crafted strategy decks, or by strictly following conventional business wisdom, which often advocates for caution and predictability.
Definitely not by the book.
No. Instead, it was forged through pure instinct, fueled by her deep-seated insecurities, and powered by sheer defiance. She didn't attempt to silence her inner doubts. She simply outworked them, leveraging them as motivation. She didn't hide her rejections or failures from the world, ashamed of them. She courageously amplified them, turning them into integral, relatable parts of her compelling narrative. And most powerfully, she didn't politely ask the world to believe in her, hoping for validation. She unapologetically forced it to watch.
What's truly fascinating here, at its heart, is that Barbara wasn't just selling apartments. She was selling belief to her clients. Yes, to the market, absolutely. But perhaps most profoundly of all, she was selling belief to herself.
Constantly reinforcing it.
It was a constant, powerful affirmation that she was capable, she was worthy, and she could achieve anything she set her mind to, regardless of who doubted her.
She proved, in the most compelling, undeniable way possible, that you don't need to be the smartest or the richest or even the most traditionally prepared person in the room to succeed spectacularly.
Not at all.
You just need to be the one who moves when others freeze, the one who sees opportunity in chaos, the one who refuses to be defined by limits imposed by others. That, in its essence, is her true genius. It wasn't merely about real estate expertise or marketing prowess. It was about raw, unadulterated courage and the relentless will to define her own destiny.
So what does this all mean for you as our listener? Perhaps you're sitting on your own $1,000 idea, a brilliant spark of potential that you've been too hesitant to ignite, waiting for the perfect moment or external validation.
Waiting for permission.
Exactly. Or maybe just like Barbara, you've been told you're not smart enough, not qualified enough, not the type who makes it big. Barbara Corcoran heard all of that, every single dismissive word, every limiting label, and she still showed up, loudly, boldly, unapologetically.
Your power isn't defined by what you start with, by the resources you have at your disposal, or even by the perceived hand you've been dealt. It's in what you decide to do, the action you take, when the world bets against you, when the odds seem insurmountable, and when every voice, including your own internal one, whispers that you can't.
So we encourage you to reflect on this. What's the $1,000 decision you've been too scared to make? The one that could unlock your own potential? What's the incredible story you'll tell when you finally stop waiting for permission, stop seeking external validation, and simply begin?
Good question to leave people with.
This deep dive wasn't just about numbers. It was about the indomitable spirit of courage, the unwavering power of vision, and the unstoppable force of a voice that absolutely refuses to be silenced. Thank you for joining us on this powerful journey.